Hi everyone, welcome to Malethabo Accounting Academy. So on this tutorial, we're going to look at the general ledger, also known as the T account. So basically, those two words are used interchangeably. T account is the graphical representation of a general ledger, basically. So I want to explain which accounts increase with an entry on the debit side and which accounts decrease with an entry on the credit side, and vice versa. So first of all, I would like us to start off by defining what is debit on the general ledger or on the T account. Debit is the left hand side of your T account or the left hand side of your general ledger. Credit is your right hand side of your T account or your right hand side of your general ledger. Okay, now we want to look into which accounts increase with an entry on the debit side and decrease with an entry on the credit side. But before we get into that, I want to explain something. I want to explain that in a business, money or cash in a business is spent on three things. So we spend money on assets, we spend money on expenses, and we spend money on drawings. So when the owner of the business takes out cash from the bank account of the business and he uses it for personal things, that is also regarded as money being spent in the business. So in the business, you spend money on those three things that I've listed, right? So that is referred to as application of funds, right? So these three accounts represent the application of funds. It represents where money in the business is being spent on, right? Okay. And then another thing that I want to mention is that money in the business is received from three places, or from three accounts rather. Yes, so money is received from three accounts in the business. Money is received from income, it is received from capital, it is received from liabilities, and that is referred to as sources of funds. So these three accounts represent the sources of funds, which is income, capital, and liabilities. Okay, now according to the double entry system, the double entry system says that accounts that represent the application of funds. What are those accounts? Which is assets, expenses, and drawings. They increase with an entry on the debit side of the T account, or on the debit side of the general ledger. So accounts that represent the application of funds, they increase with an entry on the debit side and decrease with an entry on the credit side. What are those accounts? So what do I mean? I mean that assets, expenses, and drawings increase with an entry on the debit side and decrease with an entry on the credit side. Okay, let's move on to the accounts that represent the sources of income. So the accounts that represent the sources of income in the business, they increase with an entry on the credit side and decrease with an entry on the debit side. What are those accounts? So liabilities, capital, and income increase with an entry on the credit side and decrease with an entry on the debit side. Okay, so I don't want you to cram this. So this is very important. It's very important. If you do not know this and you do not understand this in accounting, you are going to be confused. It's very, very important to know this. You need to know what increases with an entry on the debit side and what increases with an entry on the credit side. What decreases with an entry on the debit side and what decreases with an entry on the credit side. It's very important. But now, how can you master this? You know, I don't want you to cram this information. I want you to know it. Ne? So now, to master this, you need to ask yourself two questions. Ne? So if you want to establish which accounts increase with an entry on the debit side, you need to ask yourself this question: where does the business spend its money on? So if you want to know which accounts increase with an entry on the debit side, you need to ask yourself this question: where does the business spend its money on? The business spend its money on assets. It spend its money on expenses. It spend its money on drawings. Then you know that those three accounts, they increase with an entry on the debit side and decrease with an entry on the credit side. And then if you want to know which accounts increase with an entry on the credit side, you need to ask yourself this question: where does the business get its money from? Where does the business generate its money or cash from? What are the sources of money in the business? There are three sources. The business gets money from income, it gets money from capital, it gets money from liabilities. Therefore, income, liabilities, and capital increase with an entry on the credit side and decrease with an entry on the debit side. Yes, so basically, today's video was based on that. I would really like to make another video where we will be looking at examples of transactions and actually apply this double entry system that I taught you today. So I think I'm going to do a second video, another video on the general ledger, where we'll be looking at the transactions, and I'll go through, I think I'm going to do 8 transactions, and then we'll go through those transactions and I will tell you and show you how you would normally handle that, how you would record that transaction on your T account or on your general ledger. Okay, thank you very much for watching this video. You are more than welcome to comment down below if you need some clarity on something regarding what this specific tutorial video was based on. You're more than welcome to ask me questions. Thank you very much once more.